So last week we looked at Mesiras Nefesh, right? What was the idea behind Mesiras Nefesh of um, the Sifsei Chaim talked about the idea that to be Moser Nefesh, what it means is that you basically put away or put aside your own personal desires, wants, wishes in order to fulfill the will of Hashem, and that was what the Chashmonaim did, and that's why they were zocha to the miracles that they witnessed. So, but we're going to have to leave that aside now, and now the Sifsei Chaim is getting into what is Yavan. Let's understand what was Galus Yavan all about. So this is a new section. So he says, "Betfilas ala nisim ne'amar she'asisa levasinu bayamim ha'im bazman hazeh." Right? It was that you performed for our forefathers in those days at this time. So he says, "Kol ha'modim v'hayamim hatovim sheyesh lanu ein chagim historiim." It's not, so this isn't just recounting something that happened in the past. Ela kol ha'Irurim shahayeshuas ha'shefa ruchani v'agashmi shahaya misorim mischadshim midei shona bizmanehem. The Ramchal. So it quotes the Ramchal and says that what we're really sort of doing is tapping into what happened in the past. Shekol tikun shnitkan ve'or gado shahayir bizman shazmanim b'shuv tkuvas hazman hahu yair aleinu or me'in ha'or harishon tuchdash todas hatikun hahu b'mi shekiblu. So he says that, and what we are able to do is that the light, just to translate it directly, the light that was that was sourced from that time, that is renewed and is available to us to also be makabel. So ach midas hashpa v'yishalus hamyuchedes l'kol moed shemekabel kol echad me'Hashem yisbarach tuluya b'midas ha'achana shelo. But he says, however, we have to realize that it's not just it doesn't just come for free. The amount that you are able to gain from, in this case, Hanukah, is going to be dependent on several things, on how much effort and preparation you put into the holiday. The amount of thought you put in beforehand, thought meaning like really sort of focusing in on what is going on during that time, and understanding, and the more that you're doing that, the greater the strength will be of what you're able to pull out of it. And it says that's really the motivation, the incentive for us to understand this a little bit better, because the more we do, the more that we'll get out of Hanukkah as well. And in order that we, should wake that tikkun up to also be mitaken what still needs to be fixed, even in every year, even in our times. So Galus Yavan. So Haisa Kaisher Am Yisrael Yeshvu Al Ad Masam, and right. So he's introducing a really interesting idea. We think about Galus as meaning the exile, right? But Galus Yavan, we were in Eretz Yisrael. We were on our land. And during this time, the Beis Hamikdash was not only present, but it was functional. It was doing what it was supposed to be doing. It wasn't just during that time period when they were mevatel all of the avoda in the Beis Hamikdash. For the entire time that they were in control of the world, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says, Malchus Yavan b'fnei habayis me'er shmonim shana. This was a tufa that was going on for 180 years during the time of the Beis Hamikdash. So it wasn't just during that time of the 52 years when they were doing their gzeras. But even so, we still call the entire tkufa Galus Yavan. Ki hamusa Galus eno bedavka kaisher galino me'eretz Yisrael. Galus Bavel. He says that's not just true by Yavan. It's also Galus Bavel. Perhaps other times the Galus doesn't just mean physically exiled from Eretz Yisrael. Because Galus really means that the presence of Hashem is what has been exiled. Hanukah ruchani ben Am Yisrael l'Kudosh Baruch Hu muchlash or menuktak chas v'shalom. And what that means is that our spiritual connection to Hashem has either been weakened or completely cut off, chas v'shalom. V'zos ayidei shagoyim sholtim al Am Yisrael ba'ofen ruchani. And that's only when the non-Jews are pressing and controlling us in some form of spiritual manner. Kasher hu mushba metarbusa mamekuvan es hayachosav lefi orchas achaim shal goyim galus kazu tadachen hin ayedei nisyonos hagoyim lekapos es darkam al Am Yisrael vehin ayedei shayehudim chapasim lidabek bechachmas hagoyim b'maseim. And it only works because we ourselves, the Jews, want to connect to and be part of the Goyim, the non-Jewish philosophy and their deeds. And both of these were present in Galus Yavan. Meaning the two ways were that on the one hand you have the Yavanim who were oppressing us, and on the other hand, you have the Misyavnim, right? Meaning the Jews who were Hellenized, or whatever the right term is, right? That they were taking on themselves the Greek philosophy, and therefore causing trouble as well for the Jews within our own ranks. Galus ruchanis kazu kayems bechol eis Yehudim mishtabdim lashkafos v'halchim machshava shal goyim v'nogim al pihem bekach him machnisim es atzman al galus. Therefore, we ourselves are responsible for taking ourselves into galus in that respect. Okay, so nimsa galus yavam benigud l'shar hagalus haisa galus ruchani shehi misukenes yoser. He says that we can understand galus yavan as being a spiritual exile, which is even more dangerous, he says. And this is kach mevur betfilas al nisim kisha amad malchus yavan arsha lashkichem torasecha levim chuki ritzonecha, that the wicked Yavanim wanted us to forget Torah and to take us away from doing mitzvahs. So Torah and mitzvahs would go away under Yavan. And therefore the geula would also be the spiritual geula. So, and this is, I think we're all familiar with this. The Levush and others talk about, right, the difference between Hanukah and Purim, that Hanukah was much more of a spiritual geula, and by Purim that was much more of a physical geula, where Haman wanted to actually destroy us, or Haman and Achashverosh wanted to destroy us physically. I'm going to move a little bit quicker just so we can try and cover more ground. Okay, so he then moves into the idea of how we understand how Chazal understood Yavan and this spiritual galus. So betchilas abriya uchanu kvar shorshe kol ha'iruyim. And he says that at the beginning of the creation, at the times of creation, that's when everything was sort of rooted. Everything that would happen is rooted during the Yimei Breshis. Shizcholu kol yemos olam al pi haklal she'ein chadash tachas hashemesh. Just like, right, the pasuk in Kohelet says that there's nothing new under the sun, meaning that everything has its roots all the way in the earliest times of creation. Something that hadn't been prepared earlier on can never take root, can never happen, can never function after the fact. And therefore, there was already a possibility that if we were to do chait, that there would be an idea of galus. And also the idea of when we do tshuva and Mashiach comes, all that's rooted. So then he goes through and quotes the Chazal in the Medrash that talks about all the four different galios and how they're alluded to in the psukim. But when it comes to choshech, so it says v'choshech is a malchus yavan. So at the end of the medrash it says, and when it says choshech at the time of the bria, that meant malchus yavan sheshgicha nehem sheYisrael begzerosehen, that they darkened our eyes, they reduced the light from our eyes through their decrees. So Ashtei Malchus Arishonos Heviu Chazak Psukim. So he describes that by Bavel and by Madai, it actually is a different psukim that we're learning from. But when it comes to Yavan, it's just the single word choshech. Shechu Eineim Shel Yisrael. So that's what he wants to sort of dive into, is what does that mean? So Chazal Meforshim Ich v'kama hechshichu hayavanim es eineim shel Yisrael shahaisa omers lehem kisvu al keren hashor she'ein lechem chilek be'elokei Yisrael. The Medrash says that how exactly did they, create darkness? Because it said they said to Am Yisrael that you have to write on the horn of the ox that you have no chilek in the God of Israel. So Hine b'divrei Chazal elu b'mehus malchus golus yavam gzerusav yesh v'levar dvarim achadim v'nevarim kaseder. He says that there's a few things, right, individual points here, and we're going to get to them sort of step by step. Okay, so choshech is malchus yavan. Ha'idars yavan kechoshech hi lechora hafucha me'mekuba ba'olam. Right, this is something that I think we all sort of think about and struggle with. Is on the one hand, yavan is considered to be in the world, certainly today, it's considered to be one of the highlights of the history of mankind, where Yavan introduced literature and the theater and even the language itself, right? Everything is, he says, Mekuba be'olam me'yidua me'historia shal Yavan shahari kol ha'pricha shal tarbus ha'nushis ha'nura ha'isa be'ikar b'Yavan. Everything is sort of rooted in Greek culture. His paschos of philosophy, and then even the expansion of philosophy comes from Greek philosophy, Mada, Tarbus, and so he gives all these examples. So on the one hand we have that, on the other hand we call it choshech. So how do we understand that? He says, "Meidach Gisa matzana shechazab atzmam erichu as hasafa hayivaniska hasafa hayafa b'yoser." He says we even see it in our own writings. The Chazal talk about the fact that Greek was a beautiful language. Right? The only other language you can write a Sefer Torah in and have a kosher Sefer Torah and have a kosher Kriya is in Greek. You could write a Sefer Torah in Greek. So the Dorshes Zos Mepasuk Yefyoso Shal Yefes Lashon Yavan Yeheb Ohele Shem. That the beauty of Yafes, Yavan comes from Yafes, is and that is Greek. It will be in the tense of shame. What does that mean? That's how they darshan out from the pasuk that the Greek is allowed even in our tense, meaning even in our shuls, that we can learn in Greek. So the Gemara in Megillah. And the Greeks themselves wanted the Chachamim to translate the Torah into Greek. They were very interested, right, in anything intellectual, and they were thirsty for even understanding the Chachma of Torah. And they apparently the Maharal felt that the Chachma of Torah was something that was very important to them. Even above what other nations had. In other words, we had something very unique to us. So everything seems very positive. Everything that's sort of rooted, at least secular philosophy and all that, is rooted in Greek. The Greeks themselves were very interested in learning the Torah. What exactly is the problem? The problem was that they simply wanted a conquer Torah. They wanted they wanted to own it and conquer it and to have it become part of their own culture. But in so doing, they wanted to destroy Torah from us and take it to themselves. That someone, you have, I don't know what's a good example. You have a prize fighter. They're not worried about any strong kid they see, but when you have another prize fighter, they want to fight and they want to destroy that person, or they want to beat them in the ring. So too, that's what the Greeks felt about. Here you had a competing chachma that we had of chachma Torah, and they wanted to. They had a sort of jealousy over that. They wanted to destroy Torah from us to keep it for themselves. And that's why they wanted it to be translated into Greek. Law, that it should be just sort of another offshoot of their own culture and something that they own, but nobody else should own it. And that's why he gets into what the gezeras were against us. So he says, he didn't want the Greeks didn't want to destroy us physically. Rather, what they said is you have to write down that you have no chelik in the God of Israel. Because we, the Jewish people, are the ones who have that maila, that godly maila to us. It wouldn't be enough for them to also have that chachma. They wanted to have that sort of pinnacle of intellectual prowess and everything else, but they wanted to own it independently. And that's why that was their incentive, to want to take away any connection we have to the kedusha of the chachma of Torah. Because of that, that's why it's so dangerous, more so than other exiles. Galus Gashmis, while Galus Yavan, Haisa Galus Ruchanis. Because any other Galus is only of a physical nature, but by Yavan it was not. It was purely spiritual. So from here, he wants to also understand what is that Chochmah of Yavan, and then through that, understanding what those gezeras were that they were gozer on Am Yisrael. So Chachmas Yavan he Chachmas Asecha Anoshi. She'aska harbe b'madei hateva hem chakru es chukei hateva v'hechkimu b'zeh kadei lihishtalet al hateva. Right, they wanted to really have the ability to sort of have the power to control to be above the nature, meaning that they have the ability to actually control nature. Rabos Yosef Mishnasa Baal Bais Balabayis Alateva who Adon al Olam Umlo. And so from them, the reason why they were so interested in the intellectual and their curiosity was really to be able to control the world around them, to be the sort of the master of the world. Zu Kol Sheifas Ha'adam B'chol Adoros, and this has become something that is generational. That we see this every generation. Al-Harchivas Shotano Od Va'od. We want to have more and more power over the world around us. To be able to take nature and to be able to use it for anything that any of our needs. Okay, just want to keep moving a little bit further. We're just running out of time. And on the other hand, though, so it says, "Benikud la'am Yisrael shemevakta b'sicha b'vanasam mipnei hasecha loki sheizgala lahem b'nesias Torah mishamayim b'mayim Har Sinai." But that is all in contradistinction to Am Yisrael, that we ourselves will be mevatel our own intellectual and our own ability to understand when it comes to the revelation of Torah Har Sinai. Shahari Amru Nasa v'Nishma. Because we said Nasa v'Nishma, right? What does that mean? Dahainu reishis nekaba aleinu ol malchus shamayim. First, we're going to accept upon ourselves the yoke of malchus shamayim, v'nasas ratzon Hashem, and we will do whatever the ratzon Hashem is. Af im anu lo mevinim, even when we don't understand. V'rak achar kach nishma nishtadav nizka lahavin b'sichleinu b'siyad shmaya b'minas hafshar. And nishma means that we will learn the halachos, but we will also try to understand in our own capacity as much as we can. But we also realize that there are certain things, right? He doesn't say this explicitly, but the chukim, why don't we eat pig? All those types of things, all the chukim out there that we don't understand. But unlike the Greeks, we won't just sort of throw it away. We'll say no. We accept it upon ourselves, Ol Malchus Shemayim, and therefore we understand that while we don't understand the reason for the chukim, we do understand that it's something that's incumbent upon us, and it's good for us. Because according to our understanding and the way that we look at the world, seichel is not what runs a person, at least not completely. But it's not the one pinnacle of what drives us. Rather, Torah has to be our manhig, has to be what sort of leads us down the road or shows us which road to go down. Clearly, seichel is something that is incredibly important that Hashem gave to us. Without that, you can't learn Torah. Hashem, you can't do anything. So we understand that there's certainly seichel has its place. We simply don't put it as the pinnacle above everything and say that we have the ability to understand what's good and what's bad. Rather, we defer that to the Torah and to our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's something that the Greeks could not do. So that's, and now he's coming back to connecting that back to what is choshech, and that's why that's why they were considered to be that the galus yovan is choshech elegam biglasha gazu gezeres v'asu masim lakof es Yisrael levata es chachmasim alokis ve'es kedushasam, because they made these gezeros that would make us not fulfill the Torah, and to nullify, to mivato any kind of connection, any kind of holy connection that we have to Hashem, and in order to sort of sway us over to the Greek way of thinking, and that's what it means that they darkened our eyes with their gezeres. Parshan showed divrei Chazal hu she'al yedei shekafu es al Yisrael lachbar v'Hashem yisbarach before Hesed bekach sheyichtavu she'ein lehem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. Ha'isa zu tzara gedola mishula lechoshech. That is that idea of what of their gezeres is the mashal to choshech v'od tzcharkus ma'od haTorah ma'or haTorah ve'emunah hi choshech ruchani, and that's the spiritual darkness that they let us down. Okay, so just in the few moments we have, we'll try to finish up. He gets into now the idea of the kedushas of Shabbos, and how there's an idea that whereas we as Jews have to keep the Torah, and there's a kedusha that's intrinsic to that, if a non-Jew decides to keep Shabbos, they're chayiv misa, which is interesting. Like, we don't just say, "No, you have no chiyuv." If you want to do it, like, we could probably say, if you want to keep kosher, they could keep kosher, not a problem. If they want to keep Shabbos, that is a problem. They're chayiv misa. So that he goes into that in depth in terms of how we understand, or the halacha behind it, or where the sources are. But we'll just skip that, past that, and just try to understand what he's, where he's going to go with that. So let's see, kasher hu porish mitafkido, or bocher betafkid she'eno matim lemahusa mevato hu bekach as zechus kiyuma mishum kach goy sheshavas chayiv misa. So he said that we all have to understand what our tafkid is, meaning a tafkid that that tafkid from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's really the essence of who we are. And if you are mevatel that, then you are. So mevatahu bekach as zechus kumo. If you mevatel that, you are basically being mevatel your whole reason for existence, and that's why he says goy sheshavas chayiv misas. One who keeps Shabbos chayiv misa. Me'osa siba shegazru hamila by Shabbos gazru gam lashkichem torasecha. Those who were gozer, the Yevanim who were gozer on mila, that we can't do bris mila, we can't keep Shabbos. They're the ones who are gozer to forget the Torah. Mipnei Torah he his galus nevuos alokis mishamayim me'ala teva l'seicho nushi v'hi mala usagula miyucheres l'Yisrael belvad. And all of that of what they were being mevatel is only in the realm of Am Yisrael ourselves. Shahari ein nevuah be'umos kakasuv neged kol amcha es niflos u'pirish Rashi lashon v'niflinu shetihu muvdalim bezu mikola umos. That we are separate. There are certain things that we have that the non-Jews do not have, like nevuah. L'chein him gam timu as beis hamikdash shehu makom ashros hashchina kedushas hamakom segula umalas Am Yisrael. And therefore, they're also mitame the Beis Hamikdash, which is the place of kedusha. So nimsa sheratzu levato Yisrael is called chelkei kedusha. What really comes out of all of this, if you look at all their gezeros, he says, is that they're basically trying to mevato everything that we have that brings kedusha. Kedusha is a Torah shehi yesod hakedusha shokol habriya. The kedusha of Torah is for that is something that is kedusha for every creation. Uprate kedushas Yisrael hamis yachsim lechol chelkei hametzios hamakom hazman va'adam. But the kedusha for Yisrael is really in three different places, three different things. There's kedusha of a place, there's a kedusha of time, and there's a kedusha of the person themselves. Bechidus olam shana nefesh dahainu olam kedusha zemakom. So he says that this is also the world, the year, the nefesh, the soul, meaning that there's a kedusha zemakom. Hainu the Beis Hamikdash. That's why they're metame the Beis Hamikdash. Shana the kedusha zman. Hainu Shabbos Kodesh, and therefore they're mevatel keeping Shabbos. And nefesh kedushas Adam Hainu Hamila bris Kodesh, and that's why their mevatel bris mila was to get rid of the kedusha of the person themselves. So kol zos asu ki ratzu lachshich levatos kedushas Yisrael v'skulaso mikol ha'amim. So really, what the Greeks were doing is the way through his analysis is that. Through their gezeros, they're really trying to cut us off from all the kedusha that we have, whether in the place, a time, or physically in the way that in the person themselves.